Hi team, welcome back to our Introduction to Ancient Greece Anchor Fact series of printables and mini lessons. In this series, we are learning about some of the most important events that explain the rise and fall of ancient Greece, one of the most important civilizations in history. In our first lesson, we talked about all the things that were invented in ancient Greece, from science to philosophy to realistic art. I guess you won't be surprised to hear that my personal favorite is history. When they learn that I'm a historian, people sometimes ask me one of two questions. First, what is your favorite part of history? And second, if you could go back in time and meet one person from history, who would it be? I just love almost everything about history. There are, of course, terrible wars and injustices that make us sad. These things are not enjoyable, but they are important to learn from, and I love learning. Of course, ancient Greece and American history are my favorites because they are the stories of freedom and progress. As for meeting people, how can anyone choose? Since I'm a historian, my choices are about the people who not only changed history, but who helped us to understand it. And that story begins in Greece with the father of history, Herodotus. Herodotus was born in a place called Halicarnassus, which is the part of ancient Greece that was first invaded by the Persian Empire, as we talked about in our last lesson. As part of his research, he traveled to Egypt and Babylon, and not surprisingly, he moved to Athens. When Herodotus began his work, there was no record of human activity of the kind he wanted to create. There were myths, like the story of the Titan Prometheus, who was punished for giving the gift of fire to mankind. There were ancestral legends, like the story of Theseus, the king of Athens who slayed the Minotaur. There were epics, like the tale of the Trojan War, as told by Homer. There were genealogies and king lists, like we find in the Bible stories of the many generations of people, and in Egypt, where each king's name is recorded. But what didn't exist was a revelation and explanation of the world we live in. In Herodotus' time, that meant a revelation and explanation of the Greco-Persian Wars. So that's what he decided to do. His book, usually called The Histories, begins as follows. Here are presented the results of the inquiry carried out by Herodotus of Halicarnassus. The purpose is to prevent the traces of human events from being erased by time, and to preserve the fame of the important and remarkable achievements produced by both Greeks and non-Greeks. Among the matters covered, in particular, the cause of the hostilities between Greeks and non-Greeks. There are two really important points to look at here. First, Herodotus believed it was important to not just talk about the Greeks and everything they believed about themselves, but to talk about the achievements of Greeks and non-Greeks. Second, the particular purpose Herodotus hoped to serve through inquiry is to explain the cause of the great conflict that was changing the world. In other words, he wanted to explain what was going on in the world. This is something we all want. Starting as little kids, we all started bothering our parents nonstop with the question, why, at an early stage. We always want to know why we should do something and why something happened. Not just who did what, where, and when. Memorizing useless stuff about the past is not what history is supposed to be. But history does tell us about people who live far away and who aren't alive anymore. Why should we learn about them? There's that question again, right? Why? One of the best answers was given by another historian of Athens, the second of the fathers of history, named Thucydides. He wrote in his history, "For inquirers who desire an exact knowledge of the past as an aid to understanding the future, which in the course of human things must resemble if it does not reflect it," and so on and so forth. This is a very important idea. Sometimes people say, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. That's a pretty famous quote. But what Thucydides was saying is that the future will resemble or reflect the past. Not when we don't learn, but because human beings are human beings. Human nature is what it is. Are we still fighting wars like the ancient Greeks did? Yes. Are we still trying to invent things like the ancient Greeks did? Yes. Are we still studying history like the ancient Greeks taught us? Yes. Because we are all human beings trying to understand the world we live in. We can all thank Herodotus and Thucydides for teaching us how to do that. And if we keep going together, we can learn amazing things. Our Anchor Fact series of mini lessons and printables on ancient Greece continues next time with the terrible war that ruined Greece. We learned that story thanks to Thucydides. If we learn the right lessons from it, maybe we can do a better job of sticking together and continuing to build a better world. See you next time.